Next, Bill would take the Sincere along a 300-kilometer safe route to Prince of Wales Island, which was very close to Ketchikan. Watching the rainy weather, Ami couldn't help thinking of her youngest daughter, Rain. She was named Rain because it had been drizzling when she was born. During the long voyage, Noah couldn't help missing his girlfriend again. Following the local fisherman's tradition, he gathered some fish hooks from the fishing boat, strung them together into a bracelet, symbolizing that she was the one waiting for him to return home. At that moment, Bill and Matt in the cockpit picked up a distress signal on the radio. A fishing boat was stranded downstream in Sumner Strait and asking for help. They were stuck 24 kilometers north of Port Alexander. If Bill wanted to rescue them, they'd have to turn around and head back, and they'd likely be trapped in the storm near Port Alexander. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through Bill's mind. He could pretend he hadn't heard anything and continue on his way, but he had indeed heard. A stranded fishing boat, helplessly calling out on the sea. He could go to their rescue, but if he did nothing, he'd regret it someday. So Bill turned the boat around and sailed toward the fishing boat. It was a couple who had just set out to sea when their fuel pump broke down. When Bill heard they had a 2-year-old daughter and 2 4.5-year-old sons, he laughed. "You can't beat me, I've got 7. After Bill's family towed the fishing boat back to Port Alexander on the Sincere, they were delayed by 4 hours. But it was precisely these 4 hours that caught them in a massive storm. If they followed the originally planned route, they would have to wait until the storm passed. But if they avoided the safe route and took the shortcut instead, they could set off immediately, while bypassing the storm, though they'd face unknown risks. Now, they didn't have much time to make a choice. After all, this family had already sunk 2 boats. One more wouldn't make a difference. The Browns were born adventurers. To prepare for rougher waves, everyone on board secured all items on the ship and tied the small boat to the larger one. An hour into the journey, the family experienced the power of the sea. The Sincere creaked all over with the sound of wood straining, and massive waves made the boat rise and fall with the swells, leaving the little sisters seasick. What surprised Bill most was that these waves had no rhythm at all, making it impossible for the brain to adjust, causing everyone except Bill and Ami in the cockpit to fall over. When the situation eased slightly, Matt rushed to the kitchen to secure the utensils, especially his beloved coffee machine. After all, he was the only one in the family who liked coffee. You could say this guy was quite versatile. He could handle both coffee and alcohol. After experiencing a very rough and bumpy ride, the Sincerity ship finally reached a calm bay. Only then could the family catch their breath. They simmered some meat, soup, and the family sat together to relax and settle down. Just moments ago, they had nearly felt seasick to the point of losing their stomachs. After a simple lunch, the Sincerity ship finally arrived near Prince of Wales Island. The Brown family had spent over 10 years on this island. It holds many friends and memories for them. Returning here again, the brothers also felt a special familiarity. Bill docked the boat at the pier of Vulpus Island. This was only a logging camp, so there was no fuel supply available. Bill sent Bam and Bear to refuel, while Matt and Snowbird went into the mountains to hunt. Relying solely on the one deer Matt had hunted earlier would not be enough to get them through the winter. After the turbulent sea journey, setting foot on land again lifted the spirits of the brother and sister. Moreover, this was an island they were familiar with. Snowbird had hunted on this land since she was young, so she was very confident she could hunt a caribou. Just as the brother and sister were chatting softly, they spotted deer in the forest. Just as Matt was about to fire his gun, Snowbird stopped him, because these were 2 mother deer. Meanwhile, Bam and Bear walked for about an hour before finding a place to refuel. Although there were 2 large fuel tanks and a fuel pump there, the area was completely deserted. Just as Bam was unsure whether they should proceed, Bear went ahead and started refueling. This is a jungle town. You just need to refuel and leave the money here. This is a very traditional practice.
Smells like gas.
Yeah.
That would be a bad idea. Yeah, you're the wrong person to hand this to.
On the other side, Matt also brought out his secret weapon. But the sound he produced was met with Snowbird's merciless ridicule. Is that a sickly deer? But soon they couldn't laugh anymore, because not far ahead, a deer indeed appeared. After taking it down, Matt approached and fired an additional shot before feeling at ease.
Got him. I got him.
He's still moving,
not dead.
Matt.
He's still moving. Good looking buck.
Looking at the fallen prey before them, though she hadn't hunted it herself, Snowbird was still happy for her eldest brother. A venison dinner was guaranteed tonight. The Browns' stay in Valdez brought them fruitful results. Bam and Bear bought oil, while Matt and Snowbird hunted a deer. But Bill noticed Bam seemed troubled lately, so he wanted to talk to him. What happened to Matt made him a little scared. Unfortunately, like Matt, Bam didn't want to say much when asked by his father. After spending a night at the port, they had to hurry to complete the second order. But before that, they needed to follow up on the wind power lead. When they docked yesterday, Bill contacted via radio his longtime friends, Mike and Connie. To his surprise, they learned there was a set of outdated equipment in their warehouse, so Bill sent Bam, Noah, and Matt to retrieve it, aiming to return in time to fulfill the order by hauling the plane. But this new highway had a speed limit of 56 kilometers per hour, leaving the brothers no choice but to go slow. To make matters worse, they encountered road construction and were stuck waiting for about an hour before finally reaching Connie's place. Connie had been the Browns' friend for over 30 years, so old friends naturally caught up. Later, they found that set of retired wind turbine parts in Connie's warehouse and hurriedly hauled them back. While the brothers were hauling the parts, Bear took the chance to walk the dog. Meanwhile, Bill and his wife came to this familiar spot to reminisce. This was Ami's favorite fishing spot, but decades had passed in an instant. Now she had silver hair. Once the family was reunited, they set off quickly. A client's seaplane was waiting in Somany's Bay. They had to find it and haul it over 70 kilometers to Ketchikan for repairs. When the Browns spotted the plane on the water, after a brief conversation, they quickly attached a tow line to the plane, hauling it at less than 10 kilometers per hour, slowly toward Ketchikan. But at this moment, Noah's mind was miles away. He couldn't bear missing his girlfriend, so he pulled out a sheet of paper, preparing to show off his messy handwriting. When Chung Sing Hao finally brought the plane to the dock, their work was officially done. As expected, that small boat now permanently belonged to the Browns. This success relieved the family, and they decided to take a break in Ketchikan first, before heading back to their own camp. Ketchikan was no stranger to them either. When they had shipwrecked before, they were stranded in Ketchikan for months, working to save money. And the rundown boat that repeatedly abandoned them at sea was also bought from a red-haired old man on Ketchikan's dock. One could say Ketchikan left this family with mixed feelings. But it seemed Bear was immune to the melancholy. He sat on the deck with his two sisters, enjoying homemade sandwich cookies. The next day, Bam also climbed into the cockpit, wanting to talk to Bill and Ami. Ami was very sensitive. She sensed something was off from the atmosphere. Finally, Bam expressed his thoughts. He wanted to leave the family for a while. As he had said before, he was already in his 32nds, couldn't stay on their remote island forever. He deeply longed for his own family, for children, so after careful consideration, he decided to go to another state, to pursue the life he desired. For Bam's sudden decision to leave, Bill and his wife were initially taken aback, but their son was grown up. He had his own life. In a way, for this jungle family, this might be a good solution. The children pursued their happiness, and the family would unconditionally support them. With lingering reluctance, Bam decisively picked up his small bag and began a new chapter of his life. As brown bear activities become increasingly rampant, and they are protected, So helpless, Matt and Gabe are trying to use bacon instead of bullets. Theoretically speaking, these soft bullets won't cause harm, but can make brown bears feel immense pain.
Thanks, Sal.
After testing, this method was indeed feasible, and after shooting, they could still smell a hint of breakfast aroma. As the Brown family completed Paul's freight order, they returned to Chichagof Island once again. But at the same time, they realized winter was truly coming. Although they had a great time on Prince of Wales Island, they also wasted a lot of time. First, Ami's garden. Because they missed the optimal harvesting time, all the vegetables, including the tomatoes, ultimately couldn't withstand the increasingly cold temperatures and frost. Right there in Ami's garden, they all ended up dying where they stood. Meanwhile, Matt and Snowbird were also gathering mushrooms in the forest. They were eager to collect every possible edible resource to help them get through the cold winter. After gathering the mushrooms, Matt and Gabe also delivered the cedar planks they had just finished processing to Bam. Before he left, Bam had wanted to build a house here. Even though he had left the Brown family, the brothers still delivered his share of the lumber. Finally, Bill called the brothers together for another meeting and prioritized the tasks that needed to be done now. First, Noah needed to figure out the wind power equipment they had brought back. If they could install it before winter, it would save a significant amount on fuel costs. Relying on his own ability, Noah installed it in no time and conducted a simple test. At the same time, Matt also volunteered to build a wooden shed for storing meat. After the previous 2 hunting trips, their family now had 2 caribou. Considering that his father Bill was already married with children at Matt's age, Matt hoped he could be like his father, working like a man, hunting in the bush, building houses, essentially doing more serious work. Soon, he finished the first wall. According to Matt's plan, he would build another, slightly shorter wall opposite it, and finally nail planks on the outer layer. When the first wall was done, it looked very sturdy from the surface. This time, Bear and Gabe were assigned the task of going out to hunt. Sending out this particular duo showed that Bill truly had no expectations of them bringing anything back. After all, Gabe was more of a nature transporter, and while Bear knew the forest very well, his marksmanship, compared to Snowbird's, was still slightly lacking. Even though they couldn't hold out much hope, they still couldn't afford to lose confidence. A sense of ritual was still necessary. After painting their faces with elaborate patterns, the 2 brothers carried their small boat into the adjacent forest. They needed to traverse a small section of woods to reach another bay. Meanwhile, Noah reported his research progress to his father, Bill. He had basically figured everything out preliminarily and was only waiting for Gabe to return to help him attach the maple leaf to the tripod. Additionally, he asked Bill for his opinion about his girlfriend. Noah hoped that someday in the future, he could bring her to meet his parents. At this moment, Bill simply felt that happiness came too suddenly. He wanted both the girlfriend and the turbine. Neither could be missed. Soon, after receiving his father's permission, Noah went to town and brought his girlfriend back to the island. First, they visited Big Brother Matt's tire house. Although Rain had been to the island once before to date Noah, she hadn't truly toured the Brown camp. Then they went inside the house together to meet his parents. But, completely unexpectedly, after a few awkward sentences of small talk, Ami couldn't resist asking a critical question. "Do you like children?" It was as if she had an obsession with grandchildren. Fortunately, Rain didn't mind at all, and smilingly gave her a positive answer. This question really made Noah break into a cold sweat. He quickly seized an opportunity to whisk his girlfriend away and make their escape. He was just terribly afraid that his mother might ask another critical question and ruin his grand plans. The 2 brothers, Bear and Gabe, paddled over 10 kilometers on the icy sea and finally reached the hunting grounds Bear had previously scouted. To talk about this trip, Bear's scouting work was actually done quite well. Even before they reached the shore, they had already spotted deer moving towards the bushes. The two brothers hurriedly got out of the boat, lay down on the beach, and aimed at the distant deer. When they clearly saw the distant deer fall to the ground, Bear was very certain that he had hit it, and the remaining work was left to Gabe, the transporter. It can only be said that the two brothers were quite lucky. Last time, when Matt hunted a deer, he had to drag it through the jungle for over a full day. But now, the brothers' boat was on the shore less than 50 meters away. Meanwhile, Matt's meat shed project was also nearing completion. For Matt, working alone was always painful, because he had no one to consult with. Moreover, no one was there to chat with him. So, during his work, he made a non-speaking friend named Connie. Probably the only one who could tolerate Matt's constant chattering was this Connie. According to the design, this meat shed would use a sliding automatic door. The door was made from an iron bed frame, and the opening was controlled by a steering wheel on the side. On the other side, the two sisters Snowbird and Rain were making a bell for their family's cow. As is well known, a cow's bell can not only prevent it from getting lost, but also to some extent scare away wild animals. However, if it gets lost on an island full of brown bears, it would probably end up in a brown bear's stomach very soon, and there would be little need to search for it. Due to a lack of materials, the sisters stole Big Brother Matt's enamel cup for drinking coffee. They drilled a hole in the bottom. Then they fastened a large bolt in the middle. After it was made, Rain even tested it by tying it around Snowbird's neck, although vigorous shaking could indeed make it produce sound. When worn on the cow's neck, it was probably more for show than practical use. Later, Bear and Gabe finally, before sunset, returned to the Brown camp, and they came back with a deer. This time, the two brothers went into the mountains and managed to hunt prey in just over half a day. The brothers were still full of a sense of accomplishment, but when they had finished processing the deer, Matt's meat shed was not yet completed. If Bam were still here, he wouldn't be so embarrassed. Immediately after, Matt used the base of a shotgun shell nailed to the wood as a sliding rail. He completed the final part of the meat shed work. According to Matt's design, the top of the meat shed door was not fitted with wooden planks. This allowed for better ventilation inside. Additionally, there was a triangular vent at the top of the wooden shed. This allowed air to circulate inside, making it drier. As for this automatic sliding door, I'll only say this once. Turning clockwise closes the door, and turning counterclockwise opens the door. If anyone wants to go and get some meat, be sure not to turn it the wrong way. After Gabe and Bear returned, they immediately started on another task. Noah had already installed the turbine blades on the open ground in front of the entrance. They now needed to install them onto the bracket at the windy spot on the beach. But first, Bear needed to carry a large pulley and climb to the top of the tripod. Only then could they use the pulley to lift the heavy turbine bracket up for installation. Although Bear's climbing ability was indeed good, his clumsy nature still made their work full of danger.
Watch out! The heck?
At this moment, Gabe was seething with anger. He thanked his third brother Bear for sparing his life. After Bear climbed to the top, he successfully installed the pulley. The two brothers then planned to install the turbine bracket first. As long as this step was completed, Noah could finally install the blades. But at this time, the tide began to rise. To prevent the parts on the ground from being eroded by seawater, the two brothers hurriedly used all their strength to pull this big thing to the top of the tripod. But just as it was about to reach the top, an accident occurred.
Watch out! It's going! Drop it! You, let go!
This was truly disastrous. To make matters worse, the falling wooden frame directly hit the turbine. Not only did it knock it into the water, but it also flattened it. Although the tail fin was not broken, the end of the motor was deformed from the impact. It was unknown whether the internal circuits were affected. Anyway, the dream of wind power generation was probably affected. When Bill and Noah saw the damaged equipment on the ground, they did not know what to feel in their hearts. After Noah gathered his thoughts for a few minutes, he launched into a tirade at his third brother, Bear. Until the end, Bill still refused to give up. After all, they had suffered too many failures. He said, "What is this little pain in the wind and rain? Wipe your tears. Do not be afraid. At least we still have dreams." Gabe, Snowbird, and Rain were betting. They wanted to know which person the cow named Sabrina preferred more. They called it from 3 different directions. This immediately confused the cow. In the end, it randomly chose the youngest, Rain. Just as Gabe and Snowbird were grumbling and expressing dissatisfaction because the 2 brothers, Bear and Gabe, had broken their father's wind turbine. After Noah's careful study, he found that it was indeed beyond repair. But Bill did not want to give up on this big project. Perhaps they could ask Paul to see if he had a way to obtain replacement parts. But at the same time, they also realized the importance of having a sturdy base. So Bill went all out this time and directly bought 4 bags of cement. He wanted to pour a square base on the ground. At the same time, he had his sons dig 3 holes at least 1.2 meters deep around the outside of the base, so that they could use steel cables to secure the bracket on the base. Meanwhile, Bill and Noah came to the Sincerity ship. They used the radio to ask Paul about information related to wind turbine equipment. Paul directly recommended a person named Weiss to him. Immediately after, the father and son used the radio to contact Weiss and proposed hoping to exchange through barter for a set of wind turbine equipment. Weiss said that he was currently building a house and still needed 7,000 wooden planks. If Bill could provide them, he would consider giving a brand new set of equipment to Bill. Other than that, he would not consider any other items. But 7,000 wooden planks were too massive a quantity for Bill. Finally, they agreed that if they delivered 5,000 wooden planks within 4 days, they could obtain a brand new wind turbine unit. If they used the machine made by Matt, they would probably need to run it 24 hours a day. Later that day, Bill and his youngest daughter patrolled the jungle in a light rain. They saw at the upstream of the stream a tree that had been gnawed down by beavers. Additionally, there were some salmon torn into pieces. Clearly, this was the work of a brown bear. Recently, they had indeed noticed that a brown bear often appeared around the camp. Living on Chichagof Island, brown bears would always be an unavoidable topic. And that night, when Matt came to his newly built meat shed, it was already too late. His automatic door, in front of the brown bear, was simply no match. It was pulled aside in one go. At the same time, the 3 deer inside the storage room were gone without even a small piece left. The room was in a mess, a dreadful sight. With winter approaching, the family suddenly found themselves back at square one. The scene before them couldn't help but remind them of yesterday morning, when Snowbird was sent by Ami to get a rib for breakfast. Matt specially let his sister experience his automatic door and boasted to Snowbird that this design was completely unprecedented and unrepeatable, so amazing it could shock heaven and earth. Because black bears are clumsy and wouldn't even know how to rotate it. But unexpectedly, in the face of absolute strength, there was no need to rotate it at all, and the bear just pulled his door open. At this time, the frustrated family started a family meeting again. A brown bear had destroyed all the winter provisions. They had hunted in 3 trips. Now they urgently needed to obtain meat. Bill sent out the nearly certain combination of Bear and Snowbird. Snowbird's marksmanship and Bear's knowledge of the forest. If their cooperation resulted in returning empty-handed, then no one could hunt prey. Additionally, there was an urgent task. They must complete the processing of 5,000 wooden planks within 4 days. Gabe, as the strength player, must stay to help Bill cut and process the wood. And Matt went to Horner's junkyard again. He wanted to ask Kenny for a freezer. After the brown bear's test, Matt finally understood that all fancy things are impractical. he would directly get a large freezer back. Even if there was no power temporarily, they could put ice inside to maintain the temperature, until Dad solved the wind turbine issue. Meanwhile, Bear and Snowbird found deer tracks.
Take it. Take it. Got it.
Under Snowbird's precise marksmanship, they easily hunted a deer. In the brothers' memories, Snowbird had never missed a hunt.